Greetings, crew members. We're back with another episode of Stargating. I'm Chris.
And I'm Tamara.
And join us for episode 105, The Broca Divide.
The Broca Divide.
Yes.
So we are now on for people who don't know, we originally recorded this on our cell phones, and then we were like, oh, that sounds terrible. So we stopped. And then we got nice microphones, and we started recording them on that. But then we realized that SoundCloud was not really doing much for us in terms of numbers and viewership and the amount of effort we had to put into for most of the podcasts we were running at the time, and we wanted to focus more on videos. So we switched kind of from SoundCloud over to YouTube, and we started putting more effort into video editing. So this will be the first
exclusive video to YouTube.
Yes, this is the first time we are recording an episode of Stargating for YouTube, and we talked about it, and we love Stargate so much. We haven't watched it, done a rewatch in a while.
Yeah.
And
we can't not continue to watch it.
We have to keep doing Stargating.
Yes.
So, this is the very first episode that we are recording with all of our new knowledge of how to record things and with all of our new skills. And so I imagine the jump between quality is going to be quite noticeable. And people, if this gets popular enough, people are going to start with, okay, don't even bother with the first 4 episodes, or just their first 5 episodes. Just start on episode 6.
Just like Stargate itself.
Yes. Well, no, don't start on this episode.
I think in a way you could, because we already said last episode with the terrible Emancipation.
Episode.
If you
this
haven't
is better
seen
than that episode.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go back and watch our video on Emancipation. But this is way better to kind of skip over Emancipation, and this is the best episode for sort of setting the format of what Stargate is.
Yeah, it basically does set the format. It's a shame that it's this episode.
Yeah, we're going to spend half the time on the sets we built that look nice at Cheyenne Mountain. We're going to spend the other half of the time wandering through the Vancouver woods.
Yes, and those are the 2 places we will be.
Yes.
Maybe we'll go back to the woods in the third act.
Every once in a while, we will spring for a new spaceship set.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly the woods of Vancouver will stand as a servant to...
This first season, anyway. Once they start getting their budget, they start doing, other stuff.
Yeah.
But this first season.
And they're also...
And this is a bottle episode, basically.
Yeah, they did build a new set.
Which one?
The big Minotaurs. Or not Minotaurs, the Bulls.
Oh, yeah.
The isolation chamber.
That was just a set redressing of
that's
the
fair
one
enough, yes.
where...
Well, they took the time to redress it, so we should do a proper summary, right?
Yeah, we should do a summary before we get too much into the tangents. So... It starts with the briefing. They are sitting in the briefing room, which is a set that you're going to just get so familiar with because it's the main one, basically. It's that and the medical bay. And they are being told that they're going to be sent to a planet that I think it's a MALP, right? It's called a MALP.
Well, they call it, the MALP probe, which is all that stuff I really like the setup on that.
I'm pretty sure the P stands for probe, so I'm pretty sure you just said the MALP probe. Yeah, I think is what you just said, but it's fine. It's like calling the ATM machine.
What's the MAL stand for? Monster Automated.
Oh, I'm sure you could look it up and find it out.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it has. I much prefer to make up my own funny.
I'm sure they said it in one of the episodes and we just didn't catch it.
It's like a holdover from the movie.
Yes. But the MALP has been sent through the Stargate to one of the very first
P3X planets.
Yes, one of the very first P3X planets. And Carter's program, which is Boss, took some of the information they had from some people in another episode that went through the Stargate, and they were like, yeah, this is where they think the aliens went. This is the first one that Carter's program popped out, so we're gonna go. So they send them with Marines to this planet because they say that the
beefhead Marines
cannot see through the darkness. It's very dark on the other side of the planet. And they're like, either the flashlight got broken or it's just really dark. So we don't know what's on the other side, so we're sending you with
Jack
the Marines.
has a good point later about why the probe doesn't have a pair of night vision goggles. Which, why doesn't it?
Yeah, why doesn't it? It feels like that's a thing it could have.
Lampshade.
I don't think it would be that hard, but maybe they get one. I'm pretty sure they do get it in later episodes.
I'm pretty sure consumer VCR camcorders at the time had a night vision mode like that you could switch to. All the ghost hunting shows had
which
it.
It is Jack's snark is in full force.
Yes.
It's here now.
Yeah, he's no longer...
He's funny. He's not doing Kurt Russell's
Yeah, he's no longer dour
character.
Kurt Russell.
Yes, he's funny. He's having fun. And it's like, yeah, we've got kind of the basis of Jack now. Jack's basically formed into who Jack's gonna be. Carter doesn't really have much to do this episode except that
we'll discuss it later.
Daniel is just getting shat on this episode.
Absolutely.
And it literally starts in the opening. Like they're arguing with him about going through and they're like, oh, we're just gonna go through and we're gonna let these meatheads shoot him, and Jack's like, no, we're not doing that. We'll go through and then the meatheads can follow us. They spend a lot of time like kind of pointing out that these Marines are dumb and really aggressive for just no reason.
This is all that interesting thing about pre 9/11 military, like 1990s military depiction, where they're all like shoot first idiot soldiers.
Yeah, and they call Jack Flyboy because he's Air Force.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get that there's like a rivalry, but you're on a top secret mission to go to an alien planet. Maybe just like cool it and don't do that.
Yeah, and I've yet to see Jack fly anything.
No, we haven't seen Jack fly anything.
Either the movie or this.
No, he flies nothing because like Air Force in the loosest sense of the term.
Yeah.
It'd be Space Force now. That's where the Stargate program
would be.
go.
It would be
go
under
to
Space Force. It'd be under Steve Carell on a show nobody watches.
But yeah, like it's they make a big point of showing that these aggro lunkhead Marines are like super aggressive and they're shoot first, ask questions later kind of people. And like, why are these people on this top secret mission?
That might be set up for later too as well, for why they're the first ones to kind of succumb.
Yeah, but also like, why are they even here at all if their knee-jerk reaction is to shoot first?
Yeah.
Like, why are they on this mission? Like, shouldn't they be trained to not do that?
They do, the thing they set up about the mission that they do follow through on, and Jack, I do agree with, that makes a decision later, is that this mission is specifically about, okay, we are looking for the people that were kidnapped, Shara and Skara, right? Because he says specifically, like, if you want them to go through first, Shara and Skara, do you want them to just shoot at them?
But, like, that's my point, though, is that the mission is to go through and find Shara and Skara.
I think the mission for them is that. I think for the military, the mission is to assess and engage the threat of the Goa'uld.
Yeah, well, it still seems like that seems sus considering who the commander is right now.
Yeah.
General Hammond doesn't seem
Hammond's
like
still
that.
a little. This is one of the first episodes where they start to.
He starts getting good in
Yes.
this episode. We finally start getting to see the Hammond that we know and love.
They go through to the distant galaxy planet of Vancouver Woods.
They go to Camp Vancouver Woods, just the four of them first, and then they say take a 10 count and then come through, Marine guys, because we don't want you shooting people. They go through. They're almost immediately attacked by
everything
cavemen.
is night. Everything is day for night,
Day for night, yes. It's bad.
It's the planet of day for night.
Yes, it's bad. You can really tell when at one point they shine a flashlight on somebody, and it's like, oof, that is not how flashlights look in regular nighttime.
Yeah.
Why is this flashlight a weird blue tinged?
I think there's a couple quick shots, too, of, like, the treetops, and you can clearly see, like, a blue sky just beyond the trees.
There's, like, a blue sky. Like, you can see it. That's not how night looks.
There'd be stars.
There'd be stars and stuff. So it's a cloudy day. Come on, give them a break.
Yeah, it's day for night. The planet of day for night. Yeah.
So the cavemen attack them. It's not great because they get like attacked. The Marines come through. They shoot. And then they're like, this man looks like a caveman. And they're like, okay, well, I guess this is like pre-Bronze Age humans. So
I guess this is basically the point, too, where everything I like about the episode stops.
Yes, basically, which is not great because we're like 5
I like the
minutes
mystery.
in.
I like the setup. I like when their probes, like, the probe's reading everything fine, but there's no light.
Yeah.
I like that.
It just kind of starts going downhill from the cavemen onwards.
Yes.
And
these are some Geico cavemen.
Yes. Yes, they are. They're wearing furs and, like, they've got, like, big poofy hair and their brow ridges are just like, bleh.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing because it's a podcast.
It was accurate, though.
They're just, like, so pushed forward. It's like, okay, fine, they're cavemen, I get it. Then they follow the cavemen back to their caveman camp, and they see this girl who is, like, straight up, just gonna say it, about to be raped.
Oh yeah, this is when Daniel has.
And Daniel is like, well, first Daniel's like stalling as like, because Jack's like, what are they? And Daniel's like, well, they have this and this and that.
He calls them Australopithecus, which like, no, those things are tiny.
No, yeah, and then Jack's like, you don't know, do you? And Daniel's like, no, which is. That part's funny.
Yes.
I laughed at that part. But then immediately after that, they start, like, grabbing this girl who does not look like a caveman, and they start trying to have sex with her. And Daniel's like, no, that's what cavemen did. They forced themselves on
Daniel's
people.
a full-throated endorsement of rape culture.
And you're just like, whoa, man. Like, first of all, who cares?
I guess that opinion makes
did.
sense when your beloved wife was gifted to you by her father.
That is very true. He was gifted his wife.
Which, by the way, can I say beloved wife? Because he once again keeps forgetting about her.
Yeah, he's like, we gotta spend lots of time on this planet studying the Broca Divide. And it's like, okay, your wife is like...
Because you have...
got a worm in her head.
Because they go to save the lady, but they're beat to the punch by...
Yes, by her parents.
Yeah, I like... the white outfits they're wearing. It's the only instance in this episode about a virus of somebody wearing like personal protective wear.
Yes, and it's a very basic kind of, like, they don't understand what's actually making it. They think it's a curse.
Yeah.
So
they're still like wearing like white face masks and stuff.
Yes, but it's more because they think they'll be cursed if they don't. Mm-hmm. So they go in, they throw rocks at the cavemen. The cavemen run away, and it's like, wow, guys, all you had to do was throw some rocks. But whatever. So they help them get the girl. They go back to these people's place, and this is where you find out.
Light side.
Yeah, this is where you find out that there's a light side and a dark side of this planet because it's tidally locked. Mm-hmm. So one side of it is always nighttime, and the other side is always daytime, which is a cool idea. That's a cool concept.
Wouldn't look like Vancouver, though.
Would not look like the Vancouver woods. It would look like what's the place in Skyrim full of the giant fungus?
Oh, like the shit. I keep wanting to call it the Darkwood, but that's not correct. It's Blackreach. The
Blackreach. It would look like the Skyrim thing. Yes. Yes. I did it. I just finished.
Or at the very least, it would be like that planet from Chronicles of Riddick that the prison was on, where like they have to. It's like, oh no, if the sun hits us, we roast.
No, because this is like tidally locked, and also fine, whatever. I'm giving you the idea that this could work as a planet and you could live on it.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that the planet could, like, you could physically live on a planet if it was, like, a far enough distance away from the sun.
It wouldn't be, like, just a straight tree line determining.
No, it wouldn't be. No, it wouldn't be a straight, perfect line of light on the floor that you could just see, but whatever. So they're like, okay, this tidally locked planet, they're on the light side, they're like Bronze Age humans. They put them in they put their daughter, because it's their daughter who got kidnapped and almost raped. They put her in a quote-unquote isolation cell. They call it this later. But it's just a platform, like in their dining room, with two beefy men standing in front of it.
Absolute,
and a couple
like,
of
WWE beefcakes.
And it's like, this is not an isolation cell. This is an open-air room.
I guess it's isolated in that if she tries to leave, they'll stab her with those big spears.
I guess that's what it...
I guess it's isolated in that anytime you approach her, two beefcakes cross spears at you.
Yeah. Also, this is the start of the Daniel as the we should be studying the arts.
Yes.
And Jack as we're a military operation and that doesn't matter to us.
On this case, I agree with Jack full-throatedly because, like, he's like, okay, because he asked them, he's like, oh, where are the old gods? And the old gods are like, they're like, oh, the old gods.
They haven't been here in forever.
Yeah, in forever. So he's like, okay, this is a dead end because, like, we have a mission. We're looking for the Gould. And Daniel's like, well, we need to stay here and study in anthropology. And it's like, dude, it's your wife they kidnapped.
And also, this isn't anthropology, okay? Because what happened was they took these Bronze Age humans and they brought them here. And then these Bronze Age humans just kind of continued being Bronze Age, right? And we know, because we watched the episode, what makes the dudes. But, like, even if it was a thing, it's like they didn't bring cavemen here. So something made these people cavemen, which means they're not cavemen. Yeah. They're people who are Bronze-aged humans that are being affected by something that makes them cavemen. So you're not actually studying the Broca Divide. You're studying what happens when these people, for some reason, become cavemen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of setup here. They describe the fact that the curse, as they call it, is a virus or something that is altering members of their community.
Well, they say that, like, some people can just become touched. Some people get infected with being the touched. And then they're keeping her in the isolation thing to see if she is going to become one of them. And it's like, okay, so we don't have to stick around here. These people aren't cavemen. Like, they're just straight up not. They
can
just
send people back later.
Yes. Like,
it's like we have the number saved, Daniel. We can come back.
Yeah, like we can send somebody back.
Send SG like 25 when we get to
that
one.
Like an all science team. But no. But so they come back from the planet. Basically immediately after finding all that out. They're just like, okay, let's go. Jack gets back. They talk to Hammond about it. And Daniel is like, I have to talk about the sciences. And Hammond is just like, oh, Jackson, just don't worry about. And then he's like, no, I insist. And the moment he says that it's a setup for Jackson to look like a fool. Because Daniel is like, I need to talk about the importance of science. And Hammond's like, no, don't worry about it. And so he's like, no, I insist on talking about it. So it's the setup to the joke where, no, you've already won the argument, which is exactly what he says. He goes, you've already won the argument. The president agrees with you, which President Bill Clinton coming in on the clip.
Bill Clinton's a fan of science.
Yeah, he's a big fan of science.
I'm a big supporter of learning about neurodevelopment and Broca Divide. Because he establishes they title drop the name the Broca Divide.
Yes.
Which is not an actual scientist. The Broca region is a region in your brain that controls thought and outward expression. So by dividing that from the people, they turn them into cavemen because they can't communicate. It's very strained. It sounds like a cool title. They could have just called it The Case of the Caveman Virus or something.
That's not a cool title. So
The planet that turns you into a monkey man.
Nope, still not cool. So they're like, yeah, Broca Divide. So they name drop the title. And while this is happening, okay, we get just a single shot of one of these Marines with a really dramatic musical sting, and his eyes are all wide and wild, and he's walking back and forth, and he's sweaty.
He's so sweaty. They sprayed that guy down before that shot.
And, like, everybody else is talking, and so they don't see this, except for Teal'c, because it just cuts to Teal'c, and Teal'c's staring at this guy, and then it cuts to the guy. It's got a really dramatic musical sting, and he looks like he's lost his mind, and Teal'c's the only one that noticed, because Teal'c's the only one not arguing about whether or not the military or art and science is more important. So Teal'c's just staring at him, and all I could imagine is Teal'c being like, from my limited experience with human beings, this seems unusual.
Yeah, right?
Like, poor Teal'c is the only one who's like, this guy being sus, though.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? And the musical sting makes it really jarring. Like, the first time it happened, both you and I were like, whoa, what the hell? Any
build up to that?
What the hell? And no, there isn't. There's, like, no foreshadowing.
Yeah, they're, like, talking about, like, neural regions and, like, sending, like, scientific teams, and all of a sudden it's just like, brah.
Yeah, and just cuts to him, shaking. And he's like, he's like, I'm gonna go crazy.
He's, like, rocking,
and kill everybody.
And then he does. He starts, like, calling Teal'c Gould and
then
attacking him.
Yeah, he just Yeah. And so he fights, and then Teal'c kicks his ass, because Teal'c is Worf done correctly.
Yes.
Right? Like, instead of Worf being the guy that gets beat up to show that your guy is strong, but never actually showing Worf beating anybody up, you get to see Teal'c punch the shit out of people and do a good job.
And he does that, like, just so cold. And
yes, he's so casual. He's like, boom.
I would not recommend this course of action.
Yeah, like, this is not a good idea for you.
Which they're starting to veer away from Teal'c as Spock or as Vulcan, because like the first couple episodes they didn't really know how to play as alienness, so they veered towards the cold, detached Spockness of it. But now he's starting to get some like wryness in him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great, because that's you know, that's why him and Jack are so bros.
Yeah.
Because they're just a little bit sarcastic and funny.
And they get each other, yeah.
And they get each other. Which you see in this episode, and it's nice. You see a little bit more of Teal'c and Jack bonding. But then, so, like, the Meathead Marines are affected first, obviously. We see that.
A couple of them fall through a window.
Then a couple of them in the very, like, next scene, Sam and Daniel are talking about what just happened in the briefing. And then 2 of them get in a fight up in the briefing room. They go through the glass, which, like, damn, that was an impressive stunt. Good job, y'all. They did a good job on that stunt with the fake glass and the jumping. But then it's like, they're both dead. And then the next person to get affected is Sam. So, like, they spend a lot of time showing that the Marines are meatheads and dumb. And so then they get affected first. But so, why is Sam next?
She did. I don't even know how she got, like, directly affected because she just scratches her neck.
Well, they got attacked.
I guess
they got attacked in the opening. All of the people.
So it's physical touch then. So I guess everybody was touching everything. Well, I guess as we know from today's society, yeah. I guess we know from today's society, it's impossible to keep your hands off your face and then doorknobs.
Yeah, well, you know. But that is another thing where it's like hindsight is 2020, literally.
Yeah.
Because from a 2021 perspective, when you're watching this episode, you're like, you guys don't have any protocols for this shit?
You're also like, nobody's wearing masks.
In this fucking medical bay.
Nobody wears masks. Nobody wears gloves. Nobody wears any
they just
protective
go across.
equipment.
They're like, it's fine, we're good.
Janet's just running around, just touching people's faces and then scratching her eyeballs.
And you're like, well, I guess that's how we used to think of pandemics. Like, shrug. But yeah, so it's like the Meathead Marines are affected first, and then Sam is, because Jack is in the shower. He's in, like, the showers, and Sam... And I said, when we started this episode, I was like, isn't this the first episode where Sam and Jack make out? And Chris was like, nah. And then we watched it, and it was.
Well, yeah, but, like, it's like Data and Tasha hooking up. It's just like, yeah, they're both high on an alien virus.
Yeah.
Although Jack doesn't hook up with Sam, because he doesn't have it yet.
He stops her from making out with him. And he even says, not like this. Which is like, okay, so like
a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah. So then he stops her from making out with him, and she's real aggressive about it. She's like, blah, all over his face. And then he grabs her, he brings her to the medical bay, and this is the very first episode where you meet Janet.
Yeah, which they just call her Doctor.
Yeah, they just call her Doc or Doctor.
She's not even like a character.
That's because we're pretty sure what happened was they just had a doctor in, like in the other episodes where it was just like a rotating cast of doctors. And then we think that this actress came in and they liked her so much that they were like, nope, we've got one doctor. We got a Bones situation up in here, or a Beverly situation up in here, more like.
Yeah.
And so she is the doctor for the rest of the series, basically.
I looked it up. She, next to the main cast, the main build cast, she is the character and actress in most SG-1 episodes. More than Hammond. Well, Hammond's actually in the cast, like the main build cast. Yeah. So like she's in it more than the guy that says Chevron whatever encoded.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah, no, and it was the very first episode that she showed up in, and the second we saw her, we were both like, oh, it's Janet!
Yeah. No, I think she stuck around because she was a delight to work with, and also she crafted a really good character.
We think that her as an actress, her actress got her that role. Like how Andy Dwyer was supposed to be in like 4 episodes, and then Chris Pratt was so fun to work with that they just kept giving him more roles.
Yeah, like or Miles O'Brien on TNG.
Mm-hmm.
How he slowly evolved from a background guy who punched buttons into a full-fledged character.
Yeah, we're now at the point where he's starting to get his test run for DS9, so it's a lot of Miles stuff in it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so like... Sam is affected after the Meathead Marines, which I don't get, but fine, whatever. Like, you'd think that Jack would get affected first, especially since, like, he has that crack on his head. So, like, his blood has been in contact with whatever is making this happen. Like, if it's airborne or whatever, his blood has made contact with it. So it seems like he should be the one to get it first, but...
He gets it immediately in the next scene.
Yeah, he gets it
in the middle of a
conversation. Next scene.
In the middle of a conversation, it seems like.
Yeah, because he stops her from making out. He brings her to the medical bay. Janet, like, kind of talks to him a little bit about, like, hey, You know,
she's in heat.
This is, yeah, ugh. And then she also explains they do have protocols, but it's literally for only after something's gone wrong, because they have these isolation rooms that she's putting the victims in. Yeah, and it's like, so you have protocols, but not for like when you come back before there's a problem.
There's a cool line about how they were the personal private bunkers of like the elite for the nuclear plan in the 80s, and now she's just like stripped everything out of them and converting them into isolation rooms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think she said there's like 4 of them that
they're
are
designed
reacting
to
that way.
Directly withstand a nuclear blast.
Yes, but there's like 4 people who have this problem besides Sam, and it's like a couple more meathead Marines. There's a clip where one guy's just slamming his arms against the side of the wall, and it's real bad. It's ouch, 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 ouch.
Yes.
It looks bad. Good, like, kudos to that stunt actor that they got to do that. But, like...
Yeah.
Ow!
Yeah.
Like, there's blood all over that wall. It makes me cringe.
Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. And then they're like, okay, so... Oh, and then it's another thing where she's just like, yeah, it's because, you know, primates, like human primate, and her animal brain is like, we're gonna mate with the strongest. And it's like, yeah, because fucking female chimps never rip people's faces off for no reason.
It's also a good thing neither of those isolation beefcakes were around at the time.
Right? So it's just like, sure. And then also, ew, because that's a gross thing to say, that like, she's like, oh, well, clearly she wants to have your babies because that's all that primitive human females wanted. And it's like, okay, like, you know, okay, whatever.
It's also just like an excuse
whatever with
to have
your
something
garbage writing science.
It's an excuse to have something different other than just like somebody wails on somebody, which is what we get in the next scene.
Yes, and then the very next scene, Daniel's like, what's going on? And Jack's like, oh, Carter tried to seduce me. And Daniel goes, you poor man? And I'm like, oh, fuck off, Daniel. Oh, yeah. Which, that's the thing I want to talk about. Daniel's really rough this early season. I used to really like Daniel and say he was my favorite character, but, like, this whole season he's been kind of garbage.
He's been absolutely garbage this season. He keeps forgetting that he has a wife.
Yeah, he keeps forgetting he has a wife and a fucking brother-in-law that have been stolen.
He lived with
aliens.
him for like a year and a half.
He's got like this weird thing where I guess we just don't care about rape if cavemen are doing it. Yeah. And then in this episode, like the show just keeps figuratively and then in this scene literally beating the shit out of Daniel.
Yeah, because.
But I'm also like, he kind of deserves it. He kind of sucks.
Yeah, because Jack gets the disease in the middle of their conversation, and then gets like aggro at Daniel, and then punches him in the face full force like 6 times.
Yes.
Like he's like it's a mafia movie and he just snitched on somebody.
Oh yeah, it's bad. And then when it cuts back to his face, he's got like just a tiny bit of blood, and you're like, no, his face would be hamburger meat. He just got punched puffy 6 times full force in the face
by a colonel.
Counted, and 1 time half force because people were pulling him away. He got 6 punches in before he gets before people are actually trying to stop him.
Yeah, no, his face his nose would be broken.
Hamburger meat.
Yeah, he just gets up and
like,
he's like,
my glasses got knocked off and there's a little bit of blood on my face. He doesn't even get a shiner.
He would look like Jared Leto in Fight Club.
He would look awful. Jack would get up and be like, I wanted to destroy something beautiful. Like, he would look like hamburger. It'd be bad, but you know, it's a PG-13 television show that's airing at 8 o'clock on a Monday. So.
Yeah, well, PG-13 considering the sexy top we got on fucking Carter the previous scene,
that was a sexy top. That was a very sexy
all sweaty
top.
Too.
She looked great in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack makes
now we're
comments about it.
her.
Hey, it's different when we do it. We're not her fucking commanding officer.
Yeah.
But, so he gets all aggro because Daniel's like, I'm gonna go check on Carter. I'm worried about her. She's my friend. But he also says it in like the most weaselly, nasally way, where he's like, I'm gonna go check on her. She's my friend. And you're like, oh my god, Daniel, you're a grown human man. And then there's a part where he's like, let go of my arm right before Jack starts punching him. I'm like, man, your arm is the least of your concerns at this moment. So he goes totally apeshit. He's like, you're not allowed to be her friend. She's my friend. Like,
thwap, thwap, thwap.
Thwap, thwap, thwap. We get a commercial cut. And then in the next episode, she's like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, after commercial, Janet's like, I don't understand what's happening. Their brow ridge is getting thicker. And I'm like, what?
They're turning into cavemen.
How is their brow ridge getting thicker?
Either their skull is deforming or it's fluid buildup.
Right? And if it's fluid buildup, you can, like, drain that and test it and find out what's going on. Yes. But, like, if your brow ridge is getting more pronounced, that means that your bones are changing. And I don't know how you come back from that.
And you get monster teeth, too.
Yes, you do get monster teeth. So, like, yeah, your bones are changing. Yeah. This virus, because it is a virus, again, we said already what it was, but it's a virus. This virus is changing your bone structure.
This is also the moment, too, when we know that Richard Dean Anderson is both sold on this show as a concept and on the work he will have to do as an actor to be in this show.
Oh, yeah, because he gets to act
because he's monkey screaming.
Jack, and he's like, whoa.
Through the window. Yeah, through the window at one point, like, we were introduced to him in his caveman form, and you just hear this, like, dinosaur shrieking.
At one point, I just looked at Chris and I went, acting.
Yeah.
We ask actors to do a lot.
Yes.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We ask actors to do a lot.
Yeah.
Can you make it convincing that you're tortured by becoming a caveman? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like, I never had to do this on MacGyver. MacGyver never became a caveman.
Yeah, MacGyver never became a caveman. Fucking MacGyver.
I'm pretty sure. I didn't watch MacGyver, but it doesn't seem like the kind of show where he would have become a caveman.
No, I don't think he did. So it's like, okay. So, like, also, and just another point out, he punches that man full-throated, like, 6 times in the face, and his glasses aren't even broken.
No, those are strong glasses.
Yes!
They'll survive another incident later.
Right? They, like, super strong glasses on Daniel Jackson. Good job, military.
A+ prescription. No, he had those from before, remember?
He did, you're right. So, like,
they're the same James Spader glasses.
Oh my god, that
character.
means they also lived on the planet of Abydos just fine, with no scratches. He didn't replace them when he got back. How? It's not possible.
I don't know if the Abydosians invented microfiber cloths yet.
There's literally sandstorms that just whip up huge amounts of sand, and, like, no. But no, his glasses are fine. So she sciences up the explanation of what's happening. She's like, it's a virus and it attacks your histamines, and then it makes your neural processing fluid go down. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, it's a bunch of science gobbledygook to explain why these people are cavemen. Doesn't explain how their fucking bone structure is changing, but okay, fine, whatever. And then Hammond is like, okay, well, what are the touched? And it's like, man, read the fucking briefing. We already talked about this.
Yeah, I thought you agreed to send a new science team. You think you would have read it?
Yeah, you think you would have read the fucking briefing?
Unless they left it out.
So he's like, what are the touched? And then
we didn't think the cavemen were relevant.
But it's because we're back from commercials, and people might have missed what the touched were. Yeah. They might have come in 15 minutes into the episode.
And be like, why is Jack a caveman?
Why is Jack a caveman? So we're repeating it for the commercial break. But he's like, what are the touched? And then Daniel and Teal'c, who are both immune, and they're like, we don't know why they're immune, but
Janet appears to be too.
And so is Janet. And so General Hammond's like, okay, the two of you are going to go back to the planet. You're going to try and figure out what the fuck's going on. We need blood samples from the people on the light side who are not affected by this, and we need, like, blood samples from the people that we have, so we can compare and figure out what's going on. So they're like, okay, so both you, Daniel, and you, Teal'c, because you are immune, are going to go back to this planet and get blood samples.
Oh, they're also established, too, that they are doping the fuck out of O'Neill.
Oh, yes, they're giving him so many drugs, because when they give him a lot of drugs, he can, quote-unquote, break through the virus.
That scene is really funny, because he just keeps slapping his arm and going like, and she's like, you want more? And I was expecting that, like, zoom-in moment of Janet being like, oh, no, we've made this caveman a junkie. Because why wouldn't he? He's a dumb caveman now. Of course he'd be like, morphine is great. Give me more morphine. Give me more of the magic juice that makes me feel nice.
Oh my God.
But no, it's because when he's doped up, he can, like,
He can break through the virus, like I said.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, break through the virus. Yeah, that's how viruses work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because it's like supposed to suppress. She says something about how it must be suppressing the primitive part of his brain, which is not how drugs work.
The primitive part of my brain is keeping me breathing.
If anything, the primitive part of your brain is enhanced when you're on drugs.
Yeah, it's like, oh.
You do a lot of mushrooms, and you're like, I'm going to go through spears at taxis.
I can't look into the mirror because of the ennui. What am I? I'm just a brain in a skeletal body. I should have taken the mirror down before I did mushrooms. Not that we do mushrooms, listeners. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, so you haven't read the briefing. The touched are the people who are the cavemen. We have to go get blood samples. So he sends them back. By the way, Teal'c is blunt and hilarious. Teal'c's just like, I don't care about, like, I'll go. Because I'm an alien, and so it doesn't affect me. Because he's got the alien symbiote. So him and Daniel go back to the planet. They go back to the dark side. They find the girl from the opening, the one that Daniel was like, let's just let her get raped. But now Daniel's all for helping her because no one's raping her and she's just on the side of the road. So he's like, well, now we have to help her. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't really track with what you said earlier, Daniel, but sure, fine, whatever.
It's really funny how he lets his archaeology or anthropology nerd override his white knight nerd.
Yes.
You think he'd want a white knight?
Yeah, you'd think. That's kind of his whole deal, but whatever. So he's like, we can't leave her. Teal'c's like, we have to leave her. We have to go get the blood samples, and we don't really have time to dilly-dally. So Daniel picks her up, and as Daniel is picking her up, the cavemen show up. Oh, no!
Yeah, and Teal'c's actually, like, fighting them.
Just fire above their heads. Just fire your very loud earth weapons.
Yeah, and Daniel proceeds to not do that.
Well, no, because he's too busy white knighting, so he's got her in his arms, and it's like, put her down!
Dude, you have a machine gun. You can fire with one hand. Fire it with one hand into the air. I know that, like, it's probably not actually practical to fire a machine gun like that one-handed into the air.
Probably not, but this is television world, and
this is television world. You can just do that, yeah.
This is a world where if you get electrocuted, you're going to see their skeleton in the lightning. Like, yeah. You don't see electricity, y'all. Stop showing me their skeleton, leverage.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, so Daniel gets kidnapped, understandably and kind of deservedly. Like, he gets kidnapped by the cavemen. And then Teal'c's like, fuck. Well, I need to go get those blood samples still, so, And he's probably also a little bit like, ooh, I get to go take blood samples. Usually I just shoot people, right? Like, he's probably a little bit like, I get to learn new skills, because, Janet taught him.
Well, that's what he
showed him once,
said.
And then he was like, got it, done.
That's what General Hammond said in that scene where he established it. He was like, do you know how to take blood? And they're like, no. And he's like, teach them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, I'm going to go do that. Meanwhile, Hammond is telling everybody that if anyone leaves the base, they should be shot on sight. Yes. Because at this point, it's spread through the entire base. So he's like, get the National Guard.
We got this brief shot that made me wonder about something, which is an exterior shot, which we often have that exterior established shot, the tunnel. And then we had, like, a bunch of guards driving up to it and, like, pointing guns into it. And it made me wonder if, like, they had, like, two, because that's an actual military installation. That's a real place.
Yes.
So it makes me wonder if they had, like, a day of filming establishing shots, and they were like, okay, guys, now run towards and point your gun at the tunnel. Okay, now, guys, run towards the tunnel and point your gun away from the tunnel. And they're just we don't really know what we're going to use this for yet, but we know that we will need the situation at one point where they're pointing guns into a tunnel and then pointing guns away from the tunnel.
I feel like for this first season, definitely. Yeah. I feel like for every season after 3, they got to film the shots.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like every season after 3, okay, this is a tried and true thing. I'm sure this show is great
for military recruitment.
Oh, right? Yeah. Like, the military is just like, yeah, you can join our secret Stargate program that doesn't exist.
TNG, but it encourages you to join the military? Absolutely.
Thumbs up. So, like, yeah, after season 3, I guarantee you they got to film their own pickup shots for whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we need to, I don't know, have a giant we need just a still shot of it with a bunch of people pointing their guns up at the top of the mountain. And it's like, why? And it's like, well, there's an alien that's going to come down. Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, it's just like, because, like, it just made me think of, like, the fact that, like, they must have only had like a day of just filming pickup shots, and it's a very specific shot of them pointing guns into the tunnel, and it's like that's not something that the military would just do on their own for no reason that you happen to have caught.
Yes,
that's something you have to specifically either ask the actors playing the military or the military guys
it's
themselves.
Probably just the military, right?
Themselves, yeah.
They probably just asked the military to get these shots. Like, I don't see why you would have...
Yeah.
Why would I pay for costumes when I can just have the military do it for me?
Yeah.
Like, so they're like, yeah, okay, we're like, shoot anybody who comes out and who isn't, also, I forgot to mention, Jack does tell Janet while he's coming out of it because of the morphine. Coming out of it because of the morphine is a weird sentence to say. But when he's coming out of it, he does tell Janet that any experiments she needs to do to solve this problem, she can do on him. And it's like, okay,
cool. Yeah. Guinea pig him up. Give him more drugs. Just
foreshadowing of what happens later. So Hammond's like, yeah, shoot anybody who comes out. We cut back to the planet. Daniel's getting the shit beat out of him. Teal'c's like, you need to give me blood so I can go and save my friends. And the Bronze Age people who left their daughter in the dark part of the planet
because so that she got
affected, are like, no, we're not going to do that, even though it might potentially save both my daughter and my dad. And they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. And he's like, okay, fine. And he just walks over to the isolation chamber after they leave, punches a guy in the face.
The two beefcakes. He punches out the two beefcakes.
He punches out the two
Which, like,
beefcakes.
Yeah, they'd have a lot of blood to spare. Did you see those muscles?
And then he's like, sorry. And then he pokes them with the thing, and he takes their blood by force, because he's like, well, whatever. Fuck off, I guess.
Yeah, which now that Teal'c knows how to do that, do you think he just likes doing that sometimes?
I think,
he's got a Dexter box full of blood slides.
I don't think that he has, like, a Dexter box full of blood slides, but I feel like any time they need blood samples, Teal'c is the first one to volunteer.
Because he gets to punch somebody out. And
Teal'c's like, I volunteer to get the blood samples. And Janet's like, I didn't even finish the sentence. He's like, logically, you were going to get there, and I want to take the blood samples. Indeed.
Yeah, and Daniel tries to pathetically escape.
And then he gets beaten up by the cavemen.
He just like, they're like all fighting over food, and he just like does that pathetic like he's
crawling away.
Like he's fucking what's his face? The two hobbits.
Merry and Pippin.
When they're trying to escape the orcs, they're just like I'm not gonna lie, I just kept crawling and it kept working, so I just kept doing it.
But then it doesn't though, because he immediately gets the shit kicked out of him. They break a rib for sure.
Yeah.
And he's still immune. He's still not a caveman yet, so he's like he's. It's bad. So they like kick him and they beat him up more, and it's because this episode really likes beating up Daniel, which, to be fair, a lot of the fanfic that I used to read about Stargate SG-1 involved beating up Daniel.
Well, he is the most punchable one.
He is the most punchable out of the group. But, yeah. So, yeah, like, 2 out of these 5 missions so far have brought back alien weirdness. And I feel like these people need to start being more careful.
Specifically alien weirdness that has transformed a member of the SG crew
like
into...
Kowalski. Fucking Kowalski
into a murderous
came back
monster.
and was like, I'm a Gould now. And they didn't have anything... They didn't have any checks in place for that to make sure that
they do have
Gould.
A moment early in this episode when the Bronze Age people come in their like white protective gear to throw stones. They have a moment where they like surround them, and like Teal'c like grabs one of them and like flips their head down and is like puts a flashlight on and is like, oh, there's no scars, so they're clean.
Yeah, so they figured that out.
So they've been
now,
checking that now.
But like you had a Goa'uld on your team at the time. It feels like he probably told you, oh yeah, they get a big scar on the back of their neck, and no one checked Kowalski.
Like, yeah, nobody did.
No one checked him. He just came back and was like, I'm a Goa'uld now. Like, I don't... so they need to step up their game here, because out of the 5 missions, 2 of them have brought back alien weirdness. One of them being a plague that could have killed everybody.
Yeah, well, it turned everybody into cavemen.
Cavemen. Killed everybody,
the caveman states of America.
Yeah, so they get sent alone, and literally the second they got sent alone, I was like, that's going to go well. And then it turns out... At the end of the day, the reason why Daniel Jackson and Janet and Teal'c were not affected is because of histamines. and allergies.
Well, Teal'c specifically, I think, is because of his Gould.
Well, it's because of his Gould, but it's because the Gould was basically taking care of the histamines to make it so that the virus couldn't do anything.
Yeah, but Daniel specifically.
Daniel and Janet both take high doses of antihistamines, a.k.a. allergy medication.
So Allegra saved the day.
Literally, they were saved by allergies.
Yeah. 20 cc's of Claritin stat.
Yeah, basically. So Janet goes up to Jack, and she's like, okay, I gotta give you histamines. Or antihistamines, sorry. I'm gonna put it in you. It might be bad for you, but, like, it also might fix you. And he's like, "Brr, the cavemen say do it." So she's like, okay. So she jabs him with the histamine, and the very next scene is him banging on the door and going, "Janet, let me out. I'm fine now." So he's just fine.
He does the joke where he's like, because he's, I guess, a child of the 1950s, he goes, "Lucy, I'm home."
Yeah, right.
Doing the Desi Arnaz thing. And,
well, it probably would have been on in the 60s, reruns.
And then Teal'c, forever being an alien who doesn't get pop culture, goes, "I am not Lucy."
Yeah, right.
And then he's like, "Let me out, I'm fine." He's like, "I don't know, you called me Lucy a moment ago."
Because aliens are autistic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yep. Aliens are autistic, and so that's why he's like, "You called me Lucy."
To be fair, like, I guess, too, if it was like a 20-year-old, they'd also be like, "I'm not Lucy."
Yeah, right, but he's not a 20-year-old, he's an alien.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm fine." He's like, "I have to go get Janet to make sure." So, like, they come back, he's fine. Everybody gets to go be fine again. They go to get Daniel. Daniel has become a caveman. He's on the planet, he's a caveman now. Carter got stabbed. There was just a casual throwaway line about how Carter
she got stabbed by one of her roommates, because they're doubling up on roommates because they have so much.
And so she got a stomach stab by a roommate, but I'm pretty sure it's just because they were filming all of the med bay scenes at the same time, and so they were like, okay, slap some makeup on Amanda Tapping, put her back in the gurney, and let's go.
It also, like, is a way to, like, see her so that, well, it's also
so you can see that she's got brow ridges and fuzzy eyebrows now.
Yeah, because we only have one of those isolation room
So yeah,
sets.
they mentioned that she got stabbed, because that's when Teal'c comes back with the blood samples. And so she's fine now, Jack's fine, everybody's back to being fine. Hammond, who was also infected, he's fine. So they go back to get Daniel. They tranquilize all of these people
with antihistamine darts.
Antihistamine drugs. And then Daniel, when they come across him as a caveman, is like eating a chunk of meat, and he's canoodling with the girl he was white knighting earlier.
The implication is that they've been fucking.
And the implication is that they've been fucking, and then fucking Jack is like, "Oh, Daniel, you dirty boy." And it's like, okay, man. First of all, gross. Second of all, he is not in control of himself. You were able to realize that with Sam, but you're not able to realize that with Daniel. And third of all, gross. That's a gross thing to laugh about.
How old is that girl?
I don't know. Who knows?
Right. Like, it's bad, and it's also like, what if he got her pregnant?
Yeah, like, no, Daniel. So
Daniel's got children on many worlds.
Oh yeah. So Daniel's like, okay. They bring him back to the Bronze Age people to show that they can cure them, and they're like, "Here, take him," and then they're like, "Put him in the isolation cell," and that's when we find out that the slab with the bowls and the beefcake is the isolation cell, and we were like, "That's not isolated at all." There's like a time skip. They're like, "If you're not alien, like gods, how can you fix it?" And he's like, "It's science and whatever." Yeah. And then they end up just giving up on explaining science. And she's just like, "I can lift the curse." Daniel's fine. He recovers. And then we end it with them heading back to the Stargate after all
they go
of
to the terminus line,
they go to the line, and all of the people who they just tranquilized with antihistamines come out.
Which, like, how many people are in those woods? Like, are they going to have to go through and just, like, trank everybody?
That's what he says. He's like, we're going to get all of these people, we're going to show them, and then they're going to have to go and get the rest of their people out. And so, they're
supplying everybody with air rifles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to go through and let everybody else...
They won't use that to wage war at all.
No. It'll be fine. It'll be totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a society that takes their sick people and puts them on the dark side of the planet as a punishment is going to do great with airsoft rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, well, you're going to have to go through and do it. They head back to the Stargate. And as they're hiking through the Stargate, fucking... Jack is like, oh no, she's like, oh, I'm sorry about what I did, and he's like, oh, I don't remember what you did, so meh. And she's like, oh, okay, good. And like, she clearly feels better because like she remembers everything she did, and she's like, oh, I feel better now that he doesn't remember. And then he's like, oh, I heard you got stabbed. And she's just like, oh yeah, I got stabbed. And he's just like, she's like, it's just superficial, it's healing already. And he's like, great. I wouldn't want you to be unable to wear that hot little tank top number again. And it's like, my dude, you just lied to make her feel better and then turned around and busted up that lie to specifically make her not feel better, I guess.
But she gives a smile
and
because...
then she gives a wry smile, like, that's how it is.
Because she's written by men.
Yeah, and it's like, no, I would be mortified. You're my boss.
Yes.
Like, that's my boss. Like, that is the dude who is in command. That's my boss.
Yeah, so overall, this episode has some major problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's establishing the format of, we go to this planet, we meet the locals, they have a weird problem we get involved in. Sometimes we bring it back to the base, and then, we have a sassy comment about it at the end before we walk into the Stargate and disappear.
Mm-hmm. That's how we out.
Except for the episodes that end brutally, but those don't show up till later.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the one with... never mind. We'll get into it when it comes because there's so many good ones.
There's so many good
ones.
But
yeah, no, this episode...
This is not a good one.
I have some thoughts on it. I have some feelings. I like the setup. I think I like the setup enough that I think they like the setup enough that they reuse it kind of several times. That kind of basic premise of, we've sent a probe through, but there's something damn mysterious and it's not working. And
X has made it not work.
Yeah, and usually it's more dramatic when the probe doesn't work, which calls into question why they use it to a point where I don't think we really see too much probe first action.
No, I remember lots of probe
this episode
stuff.
is kind of unique in that a lot of the preamble of before them going through the gate is stuff that's kind of cut out in future episodes.
Yeah,
future episodes usually just start with them walking through the gate.
And then they recap it as they're walking through the gate.
Yeah.
Like they didn't just do a briefing where they were all there.
Yeah, but I think the biggest struggle that they're having is now that we got past the first couple episodes, which were unique and cool and dealt with the premise and and took advantage of the premise. Now
What's our formula?
Yeah, now we're just falling back on Star Trek tropes, right? Like we had the last episode was even written by the same lady who wrote the racist episode of TNG.
Bad.
And then this episode just feels like kind of like a weirder rehash of Naked Time / Naked Now, where there's a crazy virus that's making people horny and fight and break down. And at the end of the day, we find out that the cure for it is something simple that, we were missing. Mm-hmm.
The whole reason why they don't have enough antihistamines in their diet is apparently because there's something specifically in their diet that ups their antihistamines and
those
protects
who don't
them.
eat it,
And those who don't eat it end up getting the disease eventually.
Bad kids who don't eat their vegetable get touched.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Which, that's a bad sentence. I didn't mean that.
No.
Do not cut that and take that out of context, internet.
No, well, now you've said it, and they're definitely going to. So it's one of those things where it's, by the end of the episode, you're like, okay, this wasn't great, but at least it's figuring out what its whole deal's gonna be.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, when we go on one of these planets, Goa'uld will be there.
Yeah. I specifically saw a TV trope in relation to this episode when I was looking up called initial format weirdness, which is it's like how Ron Swanson wears a suit in the first season and then never again.
Yes.
In this episode, they all wear their dress blues during the briefings, which
doesn't happen later.
From now on they just wear their t-shirts and army fatigues.
I don't know if it's from now on, but in this season,
this season it'll change. Nobody's wearing dress blues just to talk to Hammond.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Just to talk to Hammond. Just to talk to the 4-star general that runs the place.
And has a direct phone line to the president.
Phone line to the president, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Like, just that guy. It's just Hammond.
It's just Hammond.
But it's great because you and I, like, this is the early season, so it's weird because you and I are like, Hammond, he's like their dad, but, like, he's not their dad yet. That comes later, the dad aspect.
Yeah, I know. I think he's very much riding off of the character he used to play on Twin Peaks, which you haven't seen Twin Peaks, but he played a character in Twin Peaks that is very much proto Hammond.
Hammond, yeah.
Where he's more hard ass. He's a military, I think he's a colonel or a general or something.
Yeah, everyone's still figuring out what their characters are, right? Like, Hammond's still figuring out what Hammond's character is. Jack is still kind of being figured out. Like, between the writers and the actors, like, both groups are still figuring out who these characters are. Sam has done nothing. Sam did nothing this whole episode except to make out with Jack.
Yeah, get hot and horny and then scream like a caveman.
Yeah, like, Sam has
Jack got more
nothing
to do as a caveman than Sam.
Right? Jack got to say words.
Yeah.
Caveman words, but still words, which, by the way, we didn't have subtitles for this because our subtitle track was off, and I really like subtitles because they help you out. And man, figuring out what the fuck Jack's saying is almost impossible. Yeah. Like, what are you saying, Caveman Jack?
It's just like, it's a very specific type of acting that I always was kind of obsessed with as a little kid, and even now I notice it heavily. I call it deathbed acting. It doesn't actually mean when you're dying, but it just means you have to show that you're in an incredible amount of pain, but at the same time deliver some very specific and hackneyed dialogue. You'll notice it a lot when we get into, like, Star Trek Voyager, but, like, it's a lot of, like, the pain, you need to open the quantum flux manifold upon the second insert. Turn the fourth intake to a neutral plane. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a lot of that.
I know exactly what you're talking about because the entire time you were doing that, I was thinking of Ellen from Supernatural.
Yeah.
Where she's like fucking, she's holding her guts in. And she's like, you need to go and be good. And I'm like, oh my God, Ellen.
Yeah, right? Like, it's a lot of things like that. It's like, we were attacked. They came in through the fourth quadrant in a V maneuver. Like,
oh no. Yeah, okay, so I guess I have that to look forward to in Voyager.
It's a common trope I've noticed in science fiction, especially amongst military science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jack got to do, and this is like, I think this isn't a good episode, okay? This is not a good episode of Stargate SG-1.
It's not even like a good episode of science fiction.
No, it's like we came up with a gobbledygook. We worked backwards from why there were cavemen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
we were
very
like,
much
there's
so.
cavemen, let's work backwards and figure out why.
Yeah.
And why some of our characters don't become cavemen.
And
it's like, okay. And it's like the whole time I'm just looking like your literal bones are deformed. Like you have caveman teeth. And you're sitting here like, that could be fixed with antihistamines.
Again, yeah, it feels like they're just pulling from what they... And it's really funny because there's a quote I saw of Jonathan Glasner. I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, where he said specifically, I don't want this to be Star Trek. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I remember the time, and you've got this to look forward to, Riker turned into a caveman. Yeah. And, you know, it just seems like you're doing that.
Oh, great, I get to look forward to Riker turning into a caveman. Wonderful. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's very clearly they're figuring it out still, but they're starting to hit their stride.
Yeah, they're figuring out the characters, which is the most important thing. We were looking at
the other episodes that show up this season, and like the Nox show up this season.
Yeah, you get more this season.
Right? Like the fucking Nox show up in season 1. Thor shows up in season 1. Thor's hammer, that's in this season. So
I think this season also have them trapped in the ice together, Jack and Carter?
No, I think that's season 2. I kept wondering if Crystal Skull was in this season, but I'm pretty sure that's also season 2. Mm-hmm. The one
Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull is in season 2?
No, the one where Daniel's grandfather is obsessed with the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
And then
is Daniel's grandfather Dan Aykroyd?
No. No, it's not. So yeah, there are some parts of this episode that I really, really liked. I really liked Jack. I really like Teal'c. I feel like both Jack and Teal'c are starting to hit their strides.
Yeah, they're really getting the relationship between the two now.
Yep, and like there is a moment where like Teal'c goes and sits next to Caveman Jack, and he's like, I lost Daniel Jackson, and it's like he's apologizing for losing Daniel Jackson to Caveman Jack, and it's a nice moment, and like Teal'c is fun. I like Teal'c. He was kind of the standout in this episode, even though he barely had anything to do. I get
the feeling in these early episodes, in this early season, that like Teal'c says he's there to stop the Goulds, but really the only thing like keeping him sticking around is Jack.
It's Jack.
Like if he had to just deal with Sam and
he'd be gone.
Yeah, he'd be gone. Daniel Jackson, he'd be gone.
But that relationship is going to improve over the course of the series, and that's why it's really exciting, because I also can see like the cracks, like they're pairing up the nerds together and the beefy guys together, right?
Yes.
They're pairing up Sam and Daniel. They share a lot of scenes where they're talking about
Daniel is
stuff.
So useless this episode.
Oh, Daniel's bad.
There's a moment in this episode that makes Daniel the most useless, which is when they're like, the Bronze Age guys are like the so-and-so words, and Daniel's like, it's an old word. It means, I think, the old gods or the gods of the earth, and then Teal'c's just like, no, it means the underworld gods, evil gods. And it's like, okay, so Teal'c's a better translator.
Yeah, Teal'c can do your job for you, Daniel, because
why are you even here then?
Yeah, why are you even here? Why are you even on this bus?
Right?
Like, get off our bus. But no, it's like Daniel's bad, and Daniel's been bad all season. Mm-hmm. Like, Daniel is not a good character yet, and I remember him being my favorite character, so I'm like really hoping
I think it's because he's still playing James Spader.
Spader's wheedly wheezy one.
Yes, he's still playing James Spader. I think that they've already moved every character except for him away from the movie.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of in this first season.
And also
very much
Sam, they don't know what to do with Sam yet.
Yeah, no.
They're like, she's an astrophysicist and stuff, and she's like really good at computer programming. And it's like, I don't know if those two things necessarily mean that they're good at each other, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if an astrophysicist is as good at computers as Sam is, but
yeah, that's
sure.
that's TV science or comic book science, where it's
she
like
is
if
an
you're good at one thing, you're good
right?
at everything.
That's
yes.
what she is.
Yeah, I think specifically because they have to deal with
space.
Well, I think she specifically was originally there to help with like coding and figuring out like the gate coordinates and shit, right? Like both when they're on a planet and off a planet.
She was gonna take all of the
because as Daniel proved in the movies, no good at that.
No, he's bad at that.
Yeah. So overall, what would you kind of final thoughts and rating on this episode?
Like I said, there's good things and bad things. Like, Teal'c and Jack are clearly getting more pronounced and defined as characters. Daniel and Sam still have some work to do. Like, we still have to kind of move on from them. I both liked and didn't like that this episode spent the whole time beating Daniel up, both, like, in words and physically. They beat up Daniel a lot.
They punched him, just clobber him.
They punched him a lot, but they also set him up to look like a big dumb idiot a couple times over the course of it. And they make him really kind of, like, just unsympathetic.
The punching bag, literally and figuratively.
Literally, and it's like, okay, like, but then, like, the plot's not great. The day to night's really bad.
The conclusion is obvious.
The conclusion's obvious, and, well, not even, like, it's obvious, it's just, like, they're like, yeah, it's a virus that makes you into a caveman, and you're like, okay, sure. Yeah,
there's like a rule about SG-1, which is like anytime Daniel sneezes at the start of an episode, it's to set something up later about the sneezing.
Yeah, so it's like, okay. Yeah. And it's just kind of like just like not very good. Like, it's just not a very good episode.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything for the overarching plot. It spends a lot of time character assassinating Daniel. It kind of seems like they just did it because they wanted Sam to jump Jack. Yeah. Like, and because they're cavemen, why? And then we work backwards from that.
Yeah, I agree with you very much so. It's
But it's not as bad as last episode.
No, it's not like a 0 out of 5 like last episode.
Yes, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 5.
I think that's appropriate. I'm going to also give it a 2 out of 5. I would rate it higher if I didn't know that there were better episodes to come. But...
No, I wouldn't rate it higher even if this was if this was the only episode you saw, would you keep watching the show?
Probably not. No.
So that's a 2 out of 5.
I would have serious Orville situations where I'd just be like, okay, this is like from this episode of TNG and this is like from this episode of TNG.
I mentioned the Crystal Skull episode, and the Crystal Skull episode is very cool and is also the first episode I saw.
Yeah.
And that episode made me want to watch the whole series.
I think
this episode doesn't.
I think I saw the Replicator episode first.
That's cool. That's cool. That's a good episode to see first. And now you've watched all of the Stargate.
Yes.
Because that's a good episode.
I used to see the fucking trailer for the pilot episode a million times whenever I would pop in the VHS copy for the Stargate movie.
That's fun.
And I used to be like, that looks cheap and worse than the movie.
But it's actually not.
It's actually
cheap, but better than the movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was specifically of like the scorpion head or the heads flipping shut and being like, that does not look
good.
No. Yeah.
That's because they weren't actual moving heads. That we just enhanced with CGI. Yeah. They're just CGI heads.
But this episode, I'd give it a 2 out of 5. Not that good. But there are better episodes to come, and they're starting to figure out the characters. You're starting to see the characters coming through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still nothing on Sam, though.
No.
Still waiting for Sam to start. And I remember Sam being great, so I'm waiting.
Yeah, no, it's not that good of an episode.
No, it's not that good of an episode.
Yes. In the meantime, though, we have next episode to look forward to. Episode 106, The First Commandment.
Oh.
This is the episode where a SG team leader takes over a small community on a primitive land and imposes himself as their god. And the SG-1 team has to go in and be like, hey, man...
Don't do that.
If only we had some kind of directive or maybe like some kind of prime thing...
Some main directive about people with technology worse than ours and how we shouldn't help them or interfere with them because
well, SG-1 destroys that anytime they walk into a small village in full machine gun wear.
Yeah. So does Thor, though.
Yeah.
Thor's here, have this hammer. It's going to protect your entire planet for all time. Bye.
Yeah, but I feel like this episode, the next episode coming, First Commandment, I feel like it was better from what I remember. But we will have to watch it and decide for ourselves.
To see. Yeah, I can't. Right. I can barely remember it.
All right.
I remember the guy at the beginning digging. I remember that part where he's all PTSD and he just keeps digging. And they're like, why are you digging? And he's like, PTSD.
But next week on Stargating. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We have other videos available on the channel, too. Plus, we have a Ko-Fi and Patreon. If you want to help support us further, it can go a long way. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm Chris.
I'm Tamara.
Stay safe and be who you are.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you.